I'm going to say now, which is it seems proper to take a moment of silence just briefly, since just by virtue of scheduling, this event is on Patriot Day, and a good time to remember what it stands for and what all led to it. So just a brief moment. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now on to the talking part. Have some ground rules I will go over here, both for the audience and for the candidates, as they did this last night in a slightly different format. We have a timekeeper, Miss Amanda down here. Your responses will get a 30-second warning, and then they will get a "you're done" warning, at which point please stop. If you don't follow the ground rules, you will be found out of order. I do not know what that means. I do not want to find out what that means. So please stay in order. Let's see. After I'm done, you're each going to have 1 minute for an opening statement, anything you want to say. And then we're going to have questions that come from the Think Big Little Rock report, generated by the folks Create Little Rock and Think Big and all of our partners here tonight. That's where those questions will be drawn from. And then we also are going to have a couple at the end that we got from social media. So we will be asking those. You're going to have 90 seconds to answer each question. I will work to start with someone different each time, so we mix up the order a bit. You also get 3 30-second responses throughout the course of the evening. So if someone else says something and you've already spoken and you want to respond to it, you can give me a bit of a signal, and I'll give you 30 seconds to add whatever you'd like to onto that. You get 3 and no more, and Amanda's tracking that as well. I hope you were all nice to her before we started. And then I'm also authorized to create any follow-up questions that I may have based on your answers, and at the very end, you'll get another minute to close. Any questions?
I've noticed, Matt, that another mayoral candidate has just entered the room, Mr. Swartz.
Ah, Glenn, you want to come join us up here? We do have a chair for you. Just right around the corner. Short version of the rules, Glenn, you get 90 seconds to respond to a question that I ask. If you want to make a response to someone else's response, give me a high sign. You get to do that 3 times throughout, and I'll cue you up when it's your turn to go. Amanda's got signs with time warnings. Don't go over them, or terrible things will happen. All right? Okay, so we'll start this first one. We'll just start with Warwick since we're down on this end. Okay. Oh, yeah, go ahead and give your opening statements. Okay.
Arkansas Business recently had a cover story asking if Little Rock has lost its luster. And you don't have to agree with everything in the article to pretty much understand that there's a pervasive feeling around the city that we're not really fulfilling our potential. And that's what I hear everywhere I go in the city. And I think the most frustrating thing for most people is that they want to participate in the solutions, but they don't feel like they're listened to, and they don't feel like the city is inclusive enough to allow them to participate. And when it comes to Think Big Little Rock, you all have put together solutions that also need to be listened to. And not only will I be a willing partner, but I've lived out the values that you represent. In the legislature in 3 terms, I've sponsored legislation to support tech-based entrepreneurship and energy efficiency. I founded South on Main and participated in the first pop-up that led to the road diet on South Main Street. And I founded the Innovation Hub to provide youth and adults with the resources they need to start businesses and learn new skills and participate in the 21st century economy. That's what I want to do for the rest of Little Rock as your mayor, bring innovation and inclusiveness to our city. Thank you.
Vince?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vincent Tolliver, and I'm running for mayor because of one reason and one reason only, and that's people. I believe in people, I believe in inclusivity, and I believe that everyone in the city of Little Rock should be represented in our government, no matter where he or she lives across the city, whether it's Ward 1, whether it's Ward 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. I think we should all have our voices heard and understood, and I think we should all have a seat at the table. At the same time, Little Rock is the capital city. We should put on efforts to remind everyone when they visit Little Rock, you are in the capital. You are in the city that is leading the standard across the state. It is vibrant, it is energized, it is bustling. So we need to make sure that we remind visitors and residents that this is the capital. And so under my leadership as your next mayor, I will make sure that whenever anyone enters the city of Little Rock, we know that it is the capital and you're in for a good time and good people. Thank you.
Baker. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can y'all hear me? I don't think you can. Or can you? Okay. Good. It's great to be with you. I appreciate your report, and I'm really excited to be here. The report's really good. It's very helpful. It's very insightful, and I think there are a lot of neat things in it. But the main thing that's exciting about it is you. It's not the report, words on a page, just something you said. It's important words, but what makes the difference is execution, okay? I've got a bit different skill set than some of the other candidates. I've been practicing lawyer for a good long time. I sat on the school board for 12 years. I was an executive in a large series of companies. I've done a lot of executive work. I served as the superintendent of the school district for 14 months. I know a little something about education. I hope we get to talk about that. But since they sent me home on that job, I've been right back at practicing law, doing corporate and business management and a lot of management consulting with respect to organizational operations. That's what I've done, that's what I do, and that's what I want to do for you, with you. And I think it's going to be fun. I think transportation and environment is highly exciting. We all know about public safety, public education. Those are fantastic and interesting subjects that you've covered in your report, and I'll talk about the rest of them later. Thank you.
Frank, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Scott, Jr., born, raised, and still reside in Southwest Little Rock. I'm a product of Little Rock Public Schools. I'm an associate pastor at Greater Second Baptist Church, a banker at First Security Bank, a former senior advisor to Governor Mike Beebe, and a former state highway commissioner. The reason why I'm running for mayor of my hometown is because it's time to unify our city, secure our neighborhoods, help increase jobs for all of us, and make certain that we engage our youth to make certain they reach their full potential. It's a humbling experience to be before you today as a member of Think Big Little Rock and also a task force chair over transportation and environment. Thank you so much.
And Glenn, you got 60 seconds.
There we go. Well, we're on a grueling campaign schedule here. I caught a bit of a cold after our first full day of campaigning, so I considered skipping this, but I'll give it my best shot here. I am Glenn Schwartz. Mayor Schwartz be with you. I wanted to get right to the issues. I'm a journalist. I've been a teacher. I've been a recycle center owner, kind of an eclectic background. But the four main issues I'm bringing to the table is I want to decriminalize marijuana in Little Rock. Yeah. The last person has been sent to prison from Little Rock for a marijuana crime. Provide recycle services to all of the citizens, not just the houses. I think we need to prepare Little Rock for what could be exponential growth in the next 30 years. You know, we've only been undergoing linear growth. I foresee a time when Little Rock might be doubling its population every 5 years for the next 30 years or so. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Sorry for little audio bugs. I think we got them worked out. Our first question, we'll start with Vince, since we started with Warwick for the opening statements, and it is about education.
Great.
One education issue that directly affects many of our young professionals in Little Rock is the availability of affordable early childhood education and quality pre-K options. How would you address that challenge?
Thank you, Matt, for the question. It's a question that's very dear to me. It's a question that we've been working on in our campaign. Recently, I had a meeting with the superintendent of the Little Rock School District, and I asked him one important question. That question was, how many birth to pre-K centers do we have in Little Rock? His answer, 1. That is at Rockefeller Elementary School. Under my administration, I would expand the birth to pre-K centers across the city, partner with Little Rock School District and identify other elementary schools so that if you have a child that's in the 3rd grade or 4th grade, and then you also have a brother or sister that, 6-month-old or 1-year-old, I would love to see interaction between the siblings at some point throughout the day. I think it makes sense for the Little Rock. I think it makes sense for the community, and parents would enjoy it as well. So I've given a lot of thought about this pre-K option. I think that I would also like the businesses to buy in, particularly businesses that are not paying their employees a living wage. You need to pay into subsidy childcare. So if your employee is working, you're only paying them $13 an hour or $10 an hour. Well, guess what? If you have this birth to pre-K center, the employee can send his or her child there at little or no cost. It makes sense. It means that it would be a productive, a better employee, more productive. It would be better for the business and ultimately better for the city of Little Rock. I believe in pre-K for every child in the city of Little Rock.
Thank you, Vince. Baker.
Thank you. When I was superintendent of schools, I took the job on May the 3rd, 2015. And by the end of June, we added 300 pre-K seats in the city of Little Rock. 300 new seats for kids who wanted a better chance, ABC kids. So I'm not just telling you what I want or what I'd like to see happen. I'm telling you what I did. And I did it with a team, just like I want to team up with you, because that's how good things happen. You have a great idea, you have committed people, and you put a team together and you get things done. You stop talking and you go to work. And I was involved and instrumental in starting the Geyer Springs Early Childhood Center, which is a marvelous place, as well as Fair Park. I know all these things. I know what values they have. They're expensive, but they're worth it. And funding is the key. But I can tell you this, we'll be out at the legislature seeking every pre-K seat we can find, and I know how to start pre-K centers. I know how to team up with educators. I've already done it. So give me a chance to do that for you. And not only will I talk about it, which is good, we need to talk about it, but we also have to have people involved who know how to get things done. And that's one thing that I would do to start with. Early childhood from birth to pre-K is a tricky thing. There are lots of people that do that work in Little Rock. Some of them are very good. Some of them are education-based. Some of them have research-based curriculum. Some of them do not. Now, if the city of Little Rock wants to take that on, we're going to have to find a funding source. We simply don't have the money, and it would be crazy for me to tell you we're going to do that when we don't have any money to do it. We don't. Now, the state does not fund that, and if the state doesn't fund it and the city doesn't have the money for it, we've got some more talking to do. But I understand those concepts and would love to go to work for you.
All right. Frank.
As mayor, I will strongly support advocating for expanding and funding pre-Ks in our schools. As a candidate that's a Little Rock Public School graduate, I understand how dear education will be to our city. That's the reason why yesterday I announced my opportunity agenda that focused on youth and education, because I understand the only way for the city of Little Rock to truly have influence on the Little Rock School District is to become a strategic investor. That's how you help have influence. And the main reason what we have going on right now in our city, we have a grade level reading problem. If you're not able to read by the time you're in the 3rd grade, you're going to be on your way to being dead or in jail. And we have to make certain that our children have the ability to read on the 3rd grade level and more forward. And that's the reason what we have to do as far as city of Little Rock is being a strategic investor that focuses on summer grade level reading to make certain that our children have a future right here in our city. And that's what I plan to do as your next mayor.
Glenn.
There are daycares and nursery schools, and so I'm going to take the opposite track and say I'm not going to do a thing about it. If you want your kid in daycare, go find a daycare. I also don't even believe in pre-K. I think that kids should be kids. Let the kids go out there and play until they're 6 years old or something, and then they can start school.
All right. We'll get you after work.
Sorry,
Yeah, let work make. But yeah, that was right. Work. Go ahead.
Sure, okay. Well, I've been a really strong advocate for universal pre-K during my 3 terms in the Arkansas House of Representatives, including serving on the House Education Committee. But the one thing that we need to address is why we're for pre-K. And the reason is that every single study across the United States demonstrates that the outcomes for young people when they have access to a quality pre-K education literally changes their lives. It changes their futures, their ability to have opportunity. And one thing that we're missing in Little Rock is equity of opportunity. And when I talk about public education, I talk about the reasons why we need our elected political leadership engaged with our public school district, and pre-K falls in that category. I don't think that we can accept any outcome other than no matter where you live in the city of Little Rock, you know you can send your kid to a great public school. And that's not what's happening right now. Everything's determined about where you live. And I have so many friends, probably like you, who try to move to a certain neighborhood so they can get their kids into the right elementary school. Well, the sad thing about that is that a lot of people don't have that choice. They don't have that equity of opportunity. We need to create it in Little Rock. And for too long, our political leadership has said, you know what, that's done separately. I don't have to have anything to do with the school district. And I won't accept that outcome because I don't know any city in the United States with dynamic political leadership that accepts a lack of equity of opportunity when it comes to public education. So you can expect me to work side by side with an elected school board here in the city of Little Rock because I've been against the state takeover and I've been advocating for a return to local control. But I want to be part of the process, engaging every part of the city, taking input, creating a plan that includes everybody in the city so we have quality pre-K as well as quality public schools for everyone in Little Rock.
All right. And Baker, you wanted to use one of your three 30-second responses.
I'm sorry?
This is one of your three 30-second responses.
Okay, was that 30 seconds? Are you timing 30 seconds or are you timing a minute? Well, it's supposed to be 30 seconds, I think.
No, just for this part, just for this response.
That was my answer.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, I'm so terribly sorry,
Yeah.
Warwick.
It's okay.
Okay, I've got 30 seconds is what I want to be really clear
Yes.
about. Let me tell you really quick that we've got a lot of good things going on in the Little Rock School District. So don't believe everything you hear about equity of opportunity. We spend a lot more money on poor kids than we do on kids at Forest Park or on Central. Central is the lowest cost per pupil. Forest Park is the lowest cost per pupil. Roberts is the lowest cost per pupil. And when I was on the school board, we insisted on equity. We sought equity every chance we get. And the thing I was fighting for and the thing that you should be fighting for, and it's in your report, is equity of opportunity. That requires desegregated neighborhoods. It requires housing that's mixed. It requires a different city than the one you live in right now. So if you want to desegregate schools and you want to afford equal opportunity to everybody, then we need to desegregate our city.
All right. The next question, your response will be 48 seconds. No, I'm okay. But Baker, we're going to start with you.
Okay, good. I'm up again.
Yes, you are. Getting the workout. Transportation and the general environment of the city. Currently, Little Rock doesn't have a master plan that supports regional mobility, transportation and housing choice, sustainable economic growth, and a desirable quality of life. If you are elected mayor, what is your vision for such a comprehensive master plan?
Well, we need that sort of planning. And what we need to attain those things that plan suggests we need is a residential density. You can't have the kind of mass transit that we want with the densities that we have, where we're always increasing the size of our city, but relatively not increasing our population. It's impossible to have the kind of intense mass transit that we would like to have with easy connectivity between places like UA Little Rock and the Arts Center or the downtown area, Soma, back to the Med Center or neighborhoods without density. And do you realize that we've hollowed out our city? Nobody talks about that. Within a mile of where we stand right now, there are thousands of vacant lots and really nice houses that are boarded up and not being used. I've got a revitalization plan for that, and that's essential to almost every single thing, at least the first four elements of your plan. You have to have a density, a residential area that's vibrant, that's appealing to millennials, where you have a sense of place. You have a fun place to go to entertain, to be entertained, a walkable, cyclable city. That's what we need. And it's right there for us to take. If you look at Oklahoma City, that's exactly what they did. They didn't sit around and talk. They had city policies that drove those things with a good, solid plan, Matt. And that's what we need. It's not that hard to make the plan. It's hard to execute the plan. So that's what you need. You need an executive. And I'm standing here. I'm ready, willing, and able. This is the only job I want. I'm not trying to move up. I'm not trying to move over. And if I don't win, I'm not moving out. I'll be right here to help you because I believe in this town. And I want this job because I believe in this town.
All right, Frank, same question.
Growing up in the city, I've always realized and wondered, why do we have this hodgepodge of development? I still remember when there was no river market. I remember when it was an East End and not an East Village. I also understand that there was now a creative corridor. And the reason is because our cities never had a comprehensive urban plan. Our cities never had a leader that wanted to extend a comprehensive vision, set comprehensive strategies, and go out and execute for what we want our city to look like and make certain that all voices are at the table, that all voices are heard. Because we understand every part of the city has a different flavor. So we need a mayor that understands the diversity of this city, understands the identity of this city, understands how to truly connect and build bridges within this city. And we're able to do that through regional mobilization. We're able to do that through transportation choice. We're able to do that by focusing on mass transit. We have to fund our transit system so it can be reliable and dependable for everyone. We have to make certain by doing this, because if you do this, we will create housing choice. We will make certain we'll have infill development. It all starts with a plan. It starts with a vision. It starts with setting strategy. And it starts with someone who's actually going to do what they say they're going to do as they move forward. Thank you.
I am a big environmentalist. Can you hear this? Is this working? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. I'm a big environmentalist. I believe in that the planet is warming and that the sea levels may rise significantly in the next 30 or 40 years. If that happens, there will be tens of millions of displaced Americans who will be looking for a place inland to live. And Little Rock, Memphis, Huntsville, these cities may undergo exponential growth in the next 30 years. Do we grow like another Los Angeles and just cover the landscape of central Arkansas with people? Or there's a different plan. I call it the Metropolitan Village deal. Take which we've built down here at the River Market with high-density buildings, like 20,000 people or so living in like a half a square mile. Take that idea and put it into villages extending outward from the city. So you got a high-density inner city and then these villages going outward, connected by the most advanced Tomorrowland mass transit you can think of, monorails, high-speed rail. Even the vacuum tubes are starting to develop. This is the vision I have for a city that could double in population every 5 years for the next 30 years and grow to be a major metropolis of the planet. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Well, I'm definitely for having a mobility plan for the city and for a master plan for the city. And I talk a lot about plans that we need to put together for other things like our public schools. And the reason why is, the process is really just as important as the outcome. Because one thing that we haven't had in Little Rock, again, is that inclusivity and the participation of all our citizens in creating these plans and these ideas. Oftentimes, the solutions are presented to us as a fait accompli. Our leaders tell us what's going to happen, and we're supposed to go along with it. And I think we need to have a planning process where we take into account the input from all parts of the city, so that we're being truly inclusive and we have a master plan that everybody can get behind. And when it comes to mobility, we need to create a city where you don't have to own a car to get around, because that's keeping people from being able to go to work or get an education. And really, it's a tax. When you have to own a car to live in a place, it's a tax. And we know that millennials and retirees both want to move to cities where they don't have to own a car, where they have mobility options. And we need to invest in transit. But the last thing is, you need to have the leadership in the city that will fight for abiding by the plans when they're passed. Because MetroPlan had a plan that said we weren't supposed to expand beyond 6 lanes on our interstates here, but they overruled the plan in order to try to fast-track the 30 Crossing project, which is going to cut right through downtown Little Rock, in between the River Market and the East Village, and truly destroy so much of the progress that we've been making to create a livable, walkable, mobile downtown environment for Little Rock.
And Vince. Yeah, after Vince, I'll get you.
Thank you, Matt. First of all, I'd like to compliment Think Big on the master plan. When I read it, it made sense, because what it said is they're going to draw from elected officials, they're going to draw from people in the transportation industry, they're going to draw from community leaders. That makes sense. So you have a multiplicity of stakeholders at the table making decisions about how Little Rock should work as it relates to a master plan and transportation. One of my concerns is when you think about transportation as it relates to downtown, public transportation as it relates to downtown Little Rock, what I find often is the people that work downtown Little Rock actually don't use the public transportation. So under my administration, I would encourage businesses to I would incentivize and or encourage business to issue bus passes or to provide deep discounts or free bus passes so their employees can take the bus. I would encourage businesses to defray Uber costs that that wouldn't help public transportation, so I wouldn't let's not get into that. Now, I love Uber, but that wouldn't help public transportation, so let me just stay away from that. But I would encourage businesses to support our public transportation and incentivize employees to take it, whether you live in West Little Rock, whether you live in Southwest Little Rock, whether you live in Midtown, Chenal Valley, because it makes sense. I would also work with Rock Region Metro to make sure that they develop transportation that is express from Chenal or Southwest, so you don't have to have all of those stops. Thank you.
And, all right. And Vince, the people from Lyft would like to have a word with you as well. Frank, you wanted to use one of your 30-second responses. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to make certain that the facts are straight. Mr. Saban has stated that I-30 crossing cuts through the middle of downtown. Being the only candidate that's born and raised and still lives here, I understand that 30 Crossing's been there since 1950. So you can't cut through downtown when it's already there. We have to make certain that everyone understands that 30 Crossing is a regional project. Little Rock is not San Francisco. We're 124 square miles. San Francisco is 12 square miles.
Really?
Yes, very much, really. That being said, we have to make certain that 30 Crossing is a regional project that truly connects our region because of the economy, quality of safety, quality of life, and safety. Thank you.
Great. But don't go far, Frank, because you're first on the next question. We'll start with you. Public safety. Unfortunately, Little Rock has gotten a bad rap over the past few years as it relates to crime. And obviously, some could argue historically, time and time again. What civic and social programs do you think would best create or promote not only the reduction and prevention of crime, but that also change the perception of our city as a whole as it relates to public safety? So, Frank, you start this one.
In our frank discussions across this entire city, whether it was in Ponderosa, Petalway, or Pleasant Valley, safety is not only a factual problem, it's a perception issue in our city. People don't feel safe. In the Scott administration, what I want to do and I plan to do is make certain that we increase our police force from 593 police officers to 700. However, we have to make certain that that increase in police officers truly reflects and understands our city and understands to protect and serve, so they can truly have true diversity training through intentional interactions, understand implicit bias, understand de-escalation tactics. Because here's the difference. I've got a suit and tie on right now. I'm treated differently when I go down to Southwest Little Rock if I don't have a suit and tie on. That's what's wrong with Little Rock. We have to make certain that our police force understands our entire city so it can protect and serve. But not only that, we have to make certain that we have true respect for our police officers and have career ladders for them because they truly are public servants to us all and show that type of appreciation for them. So as we have to increase our police force, but make certain that they understand our relationships within the community to make certain we also can have community policing. And you do that just that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Glenn?
Well, this is the reason I got into the race. The state legislature will not do anything to reform the archaic drug laws that we have in this state. Nothing. They don't even introduce a bill for debate. If the state legislature won't do it, then the city of Little Rock will. I will make sure we get a decriminalization of marijuana, stop people from going to jail for that, and revisit all of the drug laws. I mean, people are getting busted for drugs, and they spend more time in prison than if they committed rape, robbery, or burglary. So we need to enforce, we need to focus, that is, our police and our criminal justice system on making people who commit assault, who commit weapons violations. Those are the people that should be in jail for decades, not somebody because they're smoking pot or doing even other drugs. Even the harder drugs should be revisited and focus on violent and real crime in the city of Little Rock.
Thank you, Glenn. So, a couple of nervous giggles in the crowd when you mentioned pot. I just noticed that. Warwick.
Okay. Well, everywhere I go in the city of Little Rock, I hear from people who have been victimized by violent crime or violated by a home break-in or a car break-in. crime is touching everybody in our city, and it's really affecting our ability to do business, and so much about our quality of life, and also the impression and the reputation that our city has. When I got in this race a year and 2 months ago, there were 81 vacancies in the Little Rock Police Department. These are funded positions that were just vacant. And there have been some efforts to fill them, but I want to make sure as mayor that we're doing everything we can, not just to make sure we have a fully staffed and fully resourced police force, but that we actually know how big that police force needs to be to cover the city adequately, because right now our police are spread thin and it's affecting their ability to respond effectively. But we also need to go back to community policing, because this is a strategy that's worked in the past when we were able to get out of the last big crime wave. I had a COPP officer in my neighborhood in Capitol View where I've lived for 14 years. Everybody knew him. He was on his bike or on foot. He got good information, was able to diffuse situations, was able to respond more quickly. But we took those community police out of those neighborhoods, and we need to get them back in. We do need to train our police when it comes to anti-bias and de-escalation training. That is critical to make sure we have excellent relationships with the community and to make sure that we're getting the best information and the best response possible. But we also need to invest in community and youth programming to make sure that your young people have alternatives before they're lured into criminal activity. As mayor, this is an urgent priority for me, and we'll have a multi-purpose approach to making sure we're preventing crime and responding effectively.
Vince.
The statistics say Ward 1 has the highest crime rate in the city. Perception is an issue. I live in Ward 1. I walk, I bicycle, I drive. I don't have any issues all over Ward 1. So it's a perception problem. Earlier this evening, I had the pleasure of visiting with the Little Rock Black Police Association. And so what they said when I asked about community policing and how would they grade it, they said it was very poor. Well, under my leadership, I would make sure the culture of the Little Rock Police Department supports policing communities and supports it on the level of Neighborhood Resources Center. In this city, we have 12 Neighborhood Resource Centers. Well, we need to make use of them. There's a built-in infrastructure that would work really nicely with policing communities. I would make sure that police officers who are in the communities all over the city of Little Rock had relationships with all 12 neighborhood resource centers so that they could know what the specific problems were that those neighborhood resource centers had in those particular neighborhoods. That makes sense. It's a win for the city, and it's a win for the community. So I would bridge that gap by make sure that those police officers are dispatched regularly to the neighborhood resource centers, get a sense of what is going on in those neighborhoods, and start policing communities on foot, not in their cars, but on foot.
Thank you, Vince. And Baker, to wrap us up on this one.
Thank you. Y'all see me on my bicycle riding around? That's called community mayoring, okay? And that's what police need to do. They need to get acquainted with where they work, who they work with, understand their neighbors, and that'll help solve crime. But in your report, you had it right, too. We need a reformed juvenile justice system. It's not working. I looked at every file of every kid who ever pulled a trigger or ever got hit by a bullet at the Little Rock School District when I was down there, and it was just sickening to see the records of kids who needed interventions and didn't get them. Because that was your question. What are you going to do, Baker? Well, we're going to reform that juvenile justice system. That's the start. I don't think we need 100 more police. It would be a $10 million budget buster. We don't have the money, even if it were a good idea, and I'm not sure it is. It may be a good idea, but the money has to come from somewhere. I think what we need to do is put more police in touch with more people. Get acquainted with your neighbor. Know your neighbors. Build this urban density that we've all talked about is necessary to have things like mass transit. With urban density, you get neighbors. You don't have vacant buildings, vacant lots. That's where crimes occur. If you look in cities where people have turned that around, it's with neighbors who care about neighbors, and with programs like juvenile justice, with better drug intervention programs, better programs to deal with people coming out of prison. 52% of the people that go to prison are back in prison in 3 years. You got a crime problem? Think about it like that. You've actually got the people. Half of them are going back to prison. They commit crimes to do that. Lots more to be said about that.
All right. So, Baker, are you advocating that we add a bicycle race to the next candidate forum?
I'm up for it,
Right, well.
And a dance contest. That's what I want.
I would not do well in either of those. All right. Next question, Glenn. We're going to start with you on this one, Glenn. It's about diversity and inclusion. The Little Rock School District recently started the discussion for a new facility plan for the schools. The master plan will likely create significant changes to the school district, including changes to school attendance zones. What do you see the mayor's role in addressing the possible effects, both economic and with racial segregation, in the school attendance zones if they change under this plan?
Fortunately, it is not the job of the mayor to run the school district or have a whole lot to do with the school district. So I'm just going to pass on that, but I will tell you this. I'm kind of a physical, I kind of like the physical environment. So what I want to do is I see the mothers and the parents lining up every day for a block around, like I live right next to Wakefield Elementary School, and they're all out there to pick up their kids and make sure they get home. Okay, I want to build sidewalks and bike paths to every school, starting with UALR. You know, as soon as you leave UALR, you see like a mud path on University. That's been there for the whole 30 years I've been here. There needs to be a sidewalk and a bike path leading away from UALR and leading away from every high school and junior high in the city, whether it's a public school, charter school, the new school, the old school. The physical, the kids getting to and from school is going to be my domain.
All right. Warwick.
Okay. Well, the fact is right now the zoning for the Little Rock School District doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now, and it's already leading to a lot of segregation and disenfranchisement and inequity. You know, when I'm around the city, which I am every day in all different neighborhoods, I hear the same concerns from parents everywhere who are confused about why they're zoned for certain schools or why, you know, one person across the street from them is zoned for a different school. I think we all see this with our own eyes, and what we need is a process that's transparent, that's accountable, and that most of all, again, is inclusive of everybody in the city. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I think our political leadership needs to be engaged in this process in order to ensure that inclusion and equity is prioritized. Because clearly what we've been doing over the last several decades has not achieved the result that I think we all want. And again, it's not for lack of good intention, but if you don't have the people who are elected by all of you and who are accountable by all of you, to all of you, engaged, fully engaged in advocating in your behalf and demanding certain results, then of course we're destined to repeat the same mistakes. I want to make sure that I'm working alongside our school district leaders when this process comes before us to make sure that the outcomes are absolutely equitable and that we do everything we can to overcome this legacy of segregation that unfortunately has stained the history of our city.
Vince.
In the present form, the Little Rock school zones are a mess. Not only are they a mess, they are racially charged, and I'll be very candid about it. You have students living in Bryant and or Benton, and they attend Central High School. They live in Benton and or Bryant, and they attend Central. You have students that live at 16th and let's just say Gaines. They can't go to Gibbs. Gibbs Elementary is known as one of the best schools in the Little Rock School District, but you have kids that not only do not live in the neighborhood where Gibbs is located, but kids that come from all over Little Rock and other cities to go to Gibbs. That's not right. We need to fix it. So as mayor of Little Rock, I will work closely with the Little Rock School District to make sure that those zonings reflect the children that live in the neighborhoods, because it makes no sense for a child to live 3 blocks from a school and can't even attend the school. You can't explain that. So I would attack the zoning problem head on. It would make more sense for the neighborhood and the community to make it more diverse and more inclusive, and we wouldn't have the mess that we have now currently in the Little Rock School District as it relates to zoning.
All right. Baker?
Well, there's an awful lot of talk up here. Gibbs is a magnet school. Any kid that lives in Little Rock School District can go to Gibbs if they want to. You can live across the street or across town. That's simple enough. Let's get rid of that one first. Every elementary school has a contiguous attendance zone. So this notion that there's this fruit basket turnover, no, that's not true. Every single elementary school has a contiguous zone. Now, if those schools are all white or all black, it's because this is a segregated city. And you cannot have that one concept of neighborhood schools in a segregated city without having segregated schools. I've spent the last 4 decades fighting against that because it's never right, it's never good, and I will never support that. The primary holding of Brown v. Board of Education, the thing that the people on Central High School walked up those steps to preserve, is the notion that separate schools are never equal, and they never are. They're not, and that's why my kids went 20 years in the public schools. I've had kids in Little Rock School District for 20 consecutive years. It was because I wanted my kids to go to school with people in a room built just like this one, with all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds, living and learning from one another. That's the essence of this. There's so much talk about education that's uninformed. Much of this today has been uninformed. But I've been there. 20 years I had kids in public schools, 12 years on the school board, fighting my guts out. And it's easy to criticize people when they're in the arena fighting. There's got blood and their sweat and their tears invested in something. It's simple to say it doesn't work. And it hasn't worked well. I got fired because I wanted to have a comprehensive education plan. That's why I got kicked out of Little Rock School District by the state. And I want local control.
Frank?
As mayor, I will make certain, my first priority is to make certain that we receive our local school district back today. You have to have a mayor that's going to truly be vocal, advocate, and negotiate to make certain that happens as best as possible. As the only candidate that went to school here and graduated from a Little Rock School District school throughout the process, I understand that our current attendance zone systems are very complex, cumbersome, and quite frankly rigged. We have too many issues right now. There are members of this board today that have set up the system that we have today. And we need to understand that. We need to understand that. This issue has been going on since I was in high school and junior high school, and nothing's changed yet. We need to make certain that there's a mayor that can speak truth to these type of issues that have been going on in our city for so long. It's time to have a leader that understands our city, that can speak truth, that can make certain that we truly unite the city through intentional interaction.
Yeah. Baker, you'd like a 30-second response back
Well,
on
let me just
education.
tell you what I did. Let's talk about let's get real, okay? We needed a new school in Southwest Little Rock. What did I do? I signed the papers to build it. That's what we did. At the same day I signed those papers, we built a new school out west. And you know who designed the Ascendant Zone? I did. And if you go out of that school, it's 50% people of color, 50% Caucasian people. It's working. It's not just a bunch of rich kids. It's a bunch of kids who live in Little Rock and have learned to love one another. So that's what I did. Don't talk about all this nonsense about what I didn't do or what I could have done. That's what I did.
All right. Moving on, Warwick, you're starting this one. Economic development. As we've heard from Create Little Rock, Think Big Little Rock, economic opportunity is a big driving force to get young professionals to any city, but especially for Little Rock. So, 2 parts to this question. What is your position today as it relates to why Little Rock has not been more effective so far in attracting and retaining young professionals? And as mayor, what would you do to ensure that there are additional economic opportunities for younger people?
Right. Thank you very much for that question. I think there are a lot of reasons why we're not retaining and attracting young talent. I think the answers to a lot of that are probably ones that you all are very familiar with. But I think, it starts with, the quality of life here. I think that, it's certainly something that can be improved in terms of creating an atmosphere that's exciting and attractive. If you think about the cities around the United States that are really bringing in young people, the Nashvilles, the Austins, the Pittsburghs, the Atlantas, there's just a lot more investment in the kinds of things that, young people are interested in doing. But more importantly, we need to provide jobs and economic opportunity for young people. And that means, making sure that our institutions like UALR and UAMS, our public schools, our 2-year colleges, are providing the kind of workforce training and the kind of, relevant education and support for entrepreneurship in particular that we need to make possible. And I want to talk about the fact that I created the Arkansas Regional Innovation Hub, which I did because all these other big cities around the country had facilities like that gave people access to education, to tools and equipment, to what they needed to create new businesses, to create new inventions, to get the job skills they need. And we didn't have that here. And so we filled a vacuum, but we need to be doing more. We can have an intentional effort to create all kinds of new small businesses around Little Rock in all of our neighborhoods by extending the kind of technical assistance, the kind of access to financing, doing innovative things like they did in Memphis, where they made abandoned buildings in neighborhoods in the mid-city available as incubation spaces for new small businesses. You need a mayor that's really focused on this stuff and wants to empower people economically and in an inclusive way.
Vince.
Matt, the primary reason that Little Rock has failed in attracting millennials and young leaders to the city is leadership, a failure of leadership. It's always astonishing to me what masquerades as leadership in this city. We pretend to be inclusive, but when it comes down to it, we really aren't. So when you look at the makeup of, when you look at City Hall and when you look at how City Hall operates, well, it has operated more like a private club than the people's house. City Hall has operated in a manner that's cliquish and corrupt. Those are not my words. Those are words of a police officer that I had lunch with 3 weeks ago at the Popeyes right here on Broadway, because he said, Mr. Tolliver, whether you or another candidate is mayor, I hope the first thing you do is break up the cliques and break up the corruption. It is a fact that Little Rock, the City Hall operates like a private club instead of the people's house. When I'm elected mayor, I will make sure we reclaim City Hall and return it to its rightful owners, the people, because we need to make sure that the city of Little Rock is reflected in all the residents of the city, and that the businesses and the business opportunities that we have in Little Rock, we all have a fair shake. I requested from Bruce Moore about a month ago all contracts from last June to this past June over $100,000. They returned the contract to me, 62 contracts. And when I asked them how many people of color or women on that who was awarded those contracts, they didn't have an answer. That's a problem.
There you go. All right. Baker.
Yeah. What millennials like is what you're going to have to tell me. I've got some ideas. I'm not a millennial. I've got 3 millennials, and I've got 2 sons-in-law. They like craft beer. They like the outdoors. They like to walk, just like I do. And that's what we're after here. We're after a walkable, cyclable, welcoming city, and it's right here. It's right here under our feet. And that's what I want. That's what I like, happens to be. I'm on my bike every day. I was on my bike this morning. We want opportunity. The Venture Center's full. Did y'all know that? Bright-minded people. Some of them older than I am, believe it or not. They got to be ancient down there. And they're coming up with bright ideas, and we want them to stay here. And the trick is the world is flat. Y'all read Friedman's book. Read this one, The New Geography of Jobs. You can locate a tech company anywhere, practically. And we want them to locate here. And how do we do that? We have a welcoming environment, a walkable city with mass transit that's built around this density I'm talking about. Read my revitalization piece. And then people will come here because it's a fun place to live. It's a fun place to learn. All of these schools that have been much maligned. Let's just talk about Carver, an A school. Let's talk about Booker, an A school. Let's talk about Gibbs, an A school. Let's talk about Central, an award-winning school. Let's talk about Dunbar and Man, award-winning schools, every single one of them. And they can be just that again. Some of them are still very good, and they can be even better if we could get millennials to live here, to walk their kids to those schools and invest their hearts and souls in those schools where they have their most precious things that are in their lives. That's what we need, and that's what we can do.
All right. And to make it clear for those of you who have not read Freeman's book, he means the economic world is flat. There's some opinions on a much more fringe topic. I don't think that's what Mr. Kurz was going for. Frank?
As the only candidate that's a millennial, as the only candidate that's from here and has an exhaustion from all of his friends and his family leaving Little Rock because a lack of diversity in the marketplace, educational achievement, opportunity. It's hard for minority and women business owners to thrive in this city. We need a leader that understands that. Number one, we need a leader that's going to make certain those things happen. Have true diversity in the marketplace. It's time out for 2 or 3 black and brown brothers and sisters at companies. It's time out for our educational system to stop being like this. I'm tired of my family having to leave, my friends, and everybody wants to come back home, but they have to have something to come back home to, and that's a job. We can have the great quality of life, which we do. We can go ride bikes. We can go walk the trails, but guess what? You got to have discretionary income to go buy a bike. So let's stop talking about getting millennials to live here. I am a millennial. We need our millennials to come back home and stop leaving and going to Dallas, Memphis, Atlanta. Because as soon as they get an opportunity to leave, guess what? They leave. Little Rock is a place of choice and circumstance. And we got to start changing our circumstance so Little Rock can reach its full potential right here, right now, and it's time now.
Frank, your Gen X moderator appreciates the reminder of how old I am. Yeah, Glenn.
I believe in the separation of church and state, and I believe in the separation of the economy in the state. I'm not going to bend over backwards to attract businesses to Little Rock. They can figure it out for themselves. We have 4 feet of rain a year. We have a river that runs through the city. We have plenty of water. We have people. They're educated and hardworking. We are located in the center of a great state, in the center of the greatest economy in the world. I don't think we have to bend over backwards to attract these people, but I think that a vision of reducing the carbon footprint of Arkansas and producing a city that could double in population if necessary, and double again and build a city where a new concept, it's not going to be another Los Angeles, a sprawled out city, but by producing a bold new city that has smaller carbon footprint and an exciting environment in which people can grow.
All right. Thank you, Glenn. Okay. This next question is going to be about arts and culture. We're actually going to have 2 questions in arts and culture. Vince, we're going to start with you this one, but to mix it up, I'm going to change the order and go backwards from how we've done it before. So you're still first, but then we're going to Warwick after you. Okay.
Oh, what's the question? What's the question, Matt? Oh, you want me to just talk?
I want you to create some art. I'm sorry, I'm Gen X. My memory's failing me. Okay. Question. For years, there have been multiple attempts to repurpose War Memorial Golf Course. Think Big has proposed repurposing the golf course completely and making it a central park for the city. Are you supportive of this idea? Why and why not? Why or why not?
All right, Matt. Yeah, I'm supportive of that idea, repurpose the golf course, fine. I'm not a golfer. What I am more supportive of is introducing arts and artists in all the communities in Little Rock. I would love to see every ward reach deep inside its neighborhoods and identify the musicians, the singers, the writers, the actors, all the artists that live and work in neighborhoods that we don't necessarily know. Not everything art-wise has to happen downtown Little Rock. I think as a city, we need to highlight the diversity of all the neighborhoods, and we need to identify the artists and arts communities in the neighborhoods across the city of Little Rock. That makes sense from a diverse level, it makes sense as an economic driver, and it makes sense for a thriving community. Because guess what? If there is an art event that the city is supporting in Southwest and it publicizes and does the marketing, well, residents from other parts of the city will go to Southwest and experience the arts there. Same thing as it relates to West Little Rock. I am for promoting art throughout the city because it makes neighbors talk to each other, it gets neighbors to know each other better, and it drives home the point that as residents of the city of Little Rock, we are more alike than we are unalike.
All right.
Ward. Okay. Well, because I'm so old, as Frank pointed out, I can say that back in 2005, I actually wrote an article about this for the Arkansas Times where I advocated repurposing War Memorial Park, and it's for reasons that I think are pretty obvious. We don't need a golf course taking up that kind of prime real estate right in the middle of our city. We actually have two great public golf courses aside from War Memorial in our city. And as we all know, golf is a pretty inefficient sport, takes up a lot of space, uses a lot of water. A certain demographic tends to use it. You know, we've got more acreage in War Memorial than, devoted to golf than to the zoo, than to, obviously, the stadium. There's more we can do with it. And what I want to do is lead a process where we actually ask the people of Little Rock what they want to see in that park. And we have such an opportunity also to bridge the interstate and bring neighborhoods together and create a really well-resourced and inclusive environment for people to take advantage of. But I think we need to talk about the zoo in that context, because many people don't realize this, but the zoo is a huge tourism attractor to our city. And there's a lot more innovation that we can do around the zoo. And I think there's innovation with what we can do with the stadium itself. I mean, we know that it's just recently hosted a successful concert. I think there's more we can do for other kinds of sports. But what we need is a central park, and we need an effort that's devoted to really trying to maximize the utility and the inclusion for everybody in the city, as opposed to catering to the same old small group of people that like doing things the way things have always been. Because quite frankly, that's why I decided to get in this race a year and 2 months ago. We've been doing the same things the same way for a long time because the same people have been in charge, and we need to change that.
All right. Glenn.
Am I next?
Glenn, you're up.
All right.
I'm mixing it up on you.
Hadn't really thought about it. I think about some of the only golf I've ever played is at War Memorial Stadium. So hadn't really thought about it. I might take a pass on this, but I will say that I played my first game of disc golf last weekend, and that was at a park down in Southwest Little Rock, and that was a lot of fun.
All right. You didn't think you'd come here and hear about Frisbee golf, did you? But you did. Frank.
I'm strongly in favor of repurposing War Memorial Park to truly be not only a central park, but like a Piedmont Park. One of the things I think we should do is focus on making certain that we repurpose the 18 holes to 9 holes. But in addition to that, we should have a regional sports complex right there. Understand the regional sports complex, that brings more people to this city from a sales tax dollar perspective. It's an intentional interaction to create unification. The best way to unify our city is through sports, arts, entertainment, and food. And that's a great place right there in the middle of our city to truly unite our city by taking advantage of War Memorial Park to still have sports, have a regional sports complex for economic development, have a great park and trail system right then and right there. As it relates to arts and entertainment, we have to promote it in our city. That will help diversify our city. That will help our city become more culturally competent. And by doing those things, it makes us a better Little Rock. Thank you.
Thank you. Baker.
I'm not a golfer either. I was always working as a kid, lived in the country. We didn't play golf. We didn't hit tennis balls. We worked. That's a beautiful park, but it's not going to be a golf course. It's just not. We've got good golf courses. But what we don't need to do is create a jewel that nobody can get to. The whole idea of that area is to become connected. I'm over there at least once a month at a minimum security prison run by the Department of Community Corrections. Y'all even know it was there? Sure, it's there, along with a health club, a football stadium, a zoo, and a golf course, and a spray park. And none of them are interrelated. None of them are connected. So we want that to be a neat, obviously beautiful spot, but it has to be connected. If it's not connected, you can't walk to it. You can't bike to it. You got to get in your car and go to it. It's not a meeting place. It's a destination. We want a place that's part of our community, and to do that, we have to connect that park. And we didn't even think about that when we spent $76 million on Robinson. It's lovely, but it sits there as an island. Every time we do anything like this, we have to think, how do we connect our city? How do we connect that park to the zoo and make them interrelate? And how does that relate to the Hillary Clinton Library? And how does that relate to the 12th Street and those beautiful homes down there that need some loving care? How does this all fit together so that we become a city, not a Southwest Little Rock city? I actually started school here. I started school here. I've only lived here 49 years. And could y'all help me back to my chair? My back killing me. But that's what we need. We need a connected city where people are engaged and involved with one another, and that's where that park can fit in.
All right. I should have told you to not bother, Baker, because you're up first for
Oh,
this next
good.
question.
Thank you.
And this kind of discusses something that we've heard.
All right. I play a pretty good Stratocaster. You guys got to hear that, too. Go ahead.
All right. Well, interestingly enough, this question's about music festivals and concerts.
Oh, good.
So, we've heard this discussed some tonight, that a part of the big reason that Nashville and Austin are growing at the pace that they are is their focus on music. And their focus on festivals and bringing big names in. Conversely, in Little Rock, we've had kind of a rocky year when it comes to music in this city, between Riverfest and the cancellation of 2 hip-hop concerts in this city. So, what do you think the city's role should be in creating and or controlling these musical opportunities for all of our residents?
Well, we never should have canceled a hip-hop concert unless you're going to cancel a Barry Banana Nose concert, or Barry Manilow, concert. Got to stay with me now. So, and I love music. We don't have a mid-sized music venue in this town. Did you know that? We're in a metro area of 500,000 people roughly. There's not a good mid-sized music venue. You go to Robinson, you can have an arena concert at Verizon. But where do you go if you can maybe go to the Ron Robinson? And as I say, I play in a band. Our band's practicing right now. I'm missing practice to be with you. But we don't have that. And the reason we don't is because we don't think that way. I know a music promoter who no longer works in Little Rock, does all his work in North Little Rock. And the reason he does is because he doesn't get any cooperation over here. I love music. I love the art. And I don't just say that. I mean, I play. I'll play for you if you want me to sometime. I'll bring our band, Asbury Prison Band. We just do nothing but prisons now. And that's enriching to me. And it's valuable. And it entertains prisoners for one thing. But it also brings you that kind of resonance that your life needs. I love music. And we've got to have a government that says, okay, if we want to have an attractive place that makes sense for everybody, that brings people here, let's do it here. Let's do it not just with music. Let's do it we have great video producers here. We have a lot of connections in the arts and in music production as well as video production. And we don't utilize any of that because we don't think that. Every time we do anything in this town, it should be about connecting with other people, about bringing a vibrance here, and we can do that. I want to do that.
All right. Vince, you're up.
I am a fan of music. I am a fan of concerts. I love the local talent that we have in this city. I love Big Piff. I love Rodney Block. I love Bajou. I love all of these incredible, talented artists that we have in this city, including Miss Montgomery. She's one of my favorite. Bonnie Montgomery, if you don't know her, she's a country singer. She's one of my favorite singers in the city. So as a mayor of this city, one, I think the city should be involved in the music festival and its diversity and inclusion. So the people who are deciding what music acts come to Little Rock, it needs to be a diverse committee. It needs to be a diverse committee that is across the music spectrum, that's hip-hop, that's country, that's R&B, that's soul. We need to make sure every time we put on a music festival in the city of Little Rock, it is representative not only of the city of Little Rock, but of the state as a whole. It just makes sense. It allows us to draw from not only the city, but across the state. So we need to make sure that we are intentional in the acts that we bring to the city because it just makes sense. And the way that we do that is diversity and inclusion. The people that are making the decision to bring the acts in the city, it needs to be a diverse group and it needs to be an inclusive group. And that just makes sense.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Ward?
Yeah. So this is a subject I'm actually very, very passionate about. I've got a history in really trying to promote these kinds of efforts here in the city. I founded the Arkansas Literary Festival back in 2004. And that's actually one of the most successful festivals. It's not music, but it's still going on. It's now part of the Central Arkansas Library System. And it brings lots of people from all over the country into downtown Little Rock and venues all over the city to celebrate literature. And then years later, I created South on Main, which really came about because when I was trying to rescue the magazine after it was bankrupt, we hit on the fact that people really wanted to experience Southern culture. And we were doing events in places all over the country that were wrapped around music and food and literature, all Southern. And we were being so successful with it, I thought, well, what if we could do this 365 days a year in our own venue? And so we established South on Main Street here, the only magazine in the United States that I'm aware of that has its own venue to feature that all-encompassing experience of Southern food, music, art, literature. And I was also involved in helping the Renault brothers start the Little Rock Film Festival. And I'm so glad that the Arkansas Cinema Society has picked up the baton and run with it. And I say all that to say that we have an abundance of talent in the city. We have so many local artists and people to celebrate, to get involved here. And it's not about the city controlling the process, as was sort of the word used in the question, but it's about being a good partner. It's asking, what can we do to make sure that these events not only can be successful, but that can really thrive, because there is support that the city can provide by being a good partner, and we can make Little Rock a center of Southern culture for the entire country to celebrate.
Glenn, I know you've got some opinions on music. You have.
Yeah, I used to have a great time when they had the concerts at Riverfront Amphitheater, and then they built Verizon, and that kind of dried that up. But I don't see the mayor having any particular thing to do with what kind of music comes to town. But I will point out one thing. I'm a physical environmentalist, and I look at the Riverfront Amphitheater, and what I see is if any kind of lightning or any kind of storm comes along, all those thousands of people are in danger. So I have this idea that we should build like a Faraday cage over that venue so that the people will be protected if a lightning storm should come around. In fact, I'd like to mention I want to build Faraday cages all over the city, at bus stops, on golf courses, just a little structure that would deflect the lightning around the people. That's the kind of thing that I'm concerned about, and I'm going to make Little Rock the safest city in regards to lightning deaths in the country.
That's Faraday cages for all of you going on Wikipedia right now. Okay, Frank.
Make a good band.
Yeah, good band name too. Frank, you're up.
Can I get some extra time to laugh a little bit?
Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Matt, to answer your question, you talk about the two instances. So I think we ought to talk about the two instances. Moneybag Yo. If you ever listen to his songs, you would understand there's nothing to be too concerned about. Number two, Keisha Cole. Canceled because the city shut down at 11 o'clock p.m. We have to have a mayor that understands arts, entertainment, and music in all its genres, and to make certain it's diverse and inclusive, and that we don't set different standards for different parts of music. I'm the only candidate on the stage that issued a statement when Moneybag Yo was asked to be canceled. We can say how much we're passionate about different things, but passion truly shows when you're faced with a challenge and you speak up and you're not being silent. That's what we need in Little Rock. Someone who understands diversity, inclusion, and understands how arts and entertainment truly unifies our city. Hip-hop is the most listened to music in the nation right now. And guess what? It ain't all black and brown people listening to it. And we got to make certain that those type of things are discussed. Thank you.
Well, I had one or two more questions, but our time is winding down, and I don't think we're going to top the passion of a music debate. So we're going to move to closing statements. Everyone gets 1 minute apiece. We started with Warwick to start. Glenn, we'll start with you and work our way down for closing statements. Whatever you want for 60 seconds.
Rock, that is dramatic. It is happening. It doesn't, not a bad thing. We will have a plan with
All right. Thank you, Glenn.
Mayor Schwartz with you.
Yes. Frank.
As I shared with you earlier, I'm born, raised, and still reside in this city. The reason why I'm running is not only because I want to unify this city and focus on jobs growth. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of our city not reaching its potential. It's time to have a leader that's going to bring us together. It's time to have a leader that's not going to be silent when issues are tough. It's time to have a leader that's going to focus that we secure our neighborhoods, help increase education, help increase jobs, but not only that, engage our youth to make certain they reach their full potential. If you want to change this city, I'm your guy. If you want things to stay the same, elect somebody else. What I'm asking you right now is to strongly consider Frank Scott Jr. FrankScottJr.com, Frank Scott Jr. on Facebook and Twitter, Frank Scott Jr. on Little Rock. Learn more about our campaign, and I sincerely ask you all to consider to vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Baker.
One day when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours, yo. Don't y'all feel that? You know, if you want a change agent, and I've loved this job interview, that's what this is. It's a few minutes to get up here and strut and make a noise like a mayor, and it's kind of fun. But I tell you what I've got that nobody else really has. I've got a resume. I started school here. I've lived here 49 years, and I love this town. But if you really want to find out what I can do, look at what I've done. I've been a change agent everywhere I've been, building new companies, taking things that were mixed up and confused and sorting them out, running big businesses with multi-million-dollar budgets, all the time valuing people, all the time insisting on diversity, all the time seeking out young talent. I love your report. It's very good. It's very good. What we can do is come up with overall strategies, use your tactics. I want to do that. And you don't have to wonder whether I can. Look at what I've done. Look at what we did in the school district in 14 months. And that's what I want to do for you. Vote for Baker.com if you want to drill down.
Thank you, Baker. Vince, floor is yours.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Think big, Little Rock. I'm running for mayor for one reason. People. I was born 2 hours south of here on a Sunday. The day I was born, my mother was 15 years old. 4 days later, she turned 16. I learned two things from her. One, I'm your mother and not your friend. Two, treat people the way you want to be treated. That has been my mantra for my entire life, and I owe all of that to my young mother, who early on set the standards. If you elect Vincent Tolliver, mayor of Little Rock, you'll have a mayor that treats people the way he wants to be treated. You will have a mayor that makes sure the city culture does the same. You'll have a mayor that advocates for every resident in the city. You will have a mayor that speaks truth to power, fiercely, forcefully, and unapologetically. Vincent Tolliver for mayor of Little Rock. I'd like your vote, your parents' votes, your cousins, and all your friends. Thank you.
All right, Warwick, take us home.
Okay. Well, one thing I've been thinking about tonight is how lucky we are. We have such great candidates for this office. I think it speaks well of our city, and it guarantees that we're going to have a great future. The one thing I want to tell you, though, is I've never taken on an easy job. You know, when I think back over my career, I took over the Oxford American magazine when it was bankrupt and in debt. And I was able to bring it out of bankruptcy and turn it into a successful enterprise. I founded the Arkansas Regional Innovation Hub when nobody really understood what the heck I was trying to do. And I was able to raise a couple $1 million to get that off the ground and create a resource for our community. I got elected to the legislature only to be part of the first Democratic minority in 138 years. And I was able to pass a lot of legislation and get a lot of things done. And then I decided to run for mayor against a 3-term incumbent when everybody said that there was no chance of doing that. And obviously circumstances have changed and we have great candidates here. The point is I put myself out there because when I believe in something and I'm passionate about something, I don't give up. and I don't take on things just because they're easy or because they're available. I think Little Rock needs somebody who's willing to take on the challenge of our city and turn it around. Thank you.
All right. We're going to have some of the co-chairs of Think Big come up and wrap things up. And then, gentlemen, if you'll stick around, we'll get a group photo on stage, I think, after they're done. But I hope you all found this informative. I hope you enjoyed the format. And give all the candidates one more round of applause, please. And I'll turn it over to our Think Big co-chairs.
Coming out and expressing their views and how they want to make our the best that it can be. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you. Here we go.
Woo! Same time next week.
Good job. Next week.
Good job, Frank.
Good job.